Everyone, welcome to the Wedding Mavericks podcast with me, Lindsay, and Jules. A podcast for wedding videographers and photographers where we discuss all aspects of running a business, developing technical knowledge and skills, and pushing your creativity. The Wedding Mavericks podcast is proudly sponsored by Divine Studios, a creative agency based in Leeds, who help businesses across the globe develop web experiences and brand identities. If you're looking for help with your branding or website, please get in touch with them for a no-obligation chat to see how they can help. And if you mention Wedding Mavericks, you will receive a 10% discount on their services. Thank you, Divine, for sponsoring our podcast.
So, Linz, let's talk a bit about what we've been doing this week, because we don't have any weddings this weekend. So I'm quite excited because we're actually going out for a family meal tomorrow night, which is a rare occasion.
It is.
So that's kind of the highlight of the week, I guess. And then we're going to build a new decking in the garden, which is kind of one of those things that it's a good bit of DIY. It's exciting because it's going to transform the garden hopefully and give us a space outside. But excuse me, it's also one of those, like fairly, what I would say is it's medium advanced project. So, it's not painting a wall. There's lots to learn, lots that can go wrong. So I'm a little bit apprehensive about it as well as excited at the same time. Like 1,500 quid worth of decking could just get ruined because I don't know what I'm doing.
That's taken 3 months to come.
It's taken 3 months to come, yeah.
So no pressure.
No pressure. Yeah. If you stuff it up, it's going to cost a fortune and you're going to have to wait another 3 months. So it'll be the end of summer then.
And the kids won't have the garden space to be able to play at half term.
No pressure at all. We've been trying to catch up a little bit on the edits, haven't we? Mm-hmm. So we've both been editing this week quite a bit because we've done quite a few weddings through April. Mm-hmm. We had another 2 last weekend. So I think we're kind of on about 5 or 6 at the moment in the queue, which to some people, 5 or 6 in the queue, bearing in mind like 2 or 3 of those are photo and video, and I think the others are just video. Mm-hmm. That might sound quite scary to some people who are listening. That is like nothing. I feel like it's fine. Like when you've had 20 deep, it's
grim days.
Yeah, you just think, well, 5 or 6 I can handle. I can get that done in not too much time. Mm-hmm. But as well, I think I always underestimate how long it's going to take because I think, I can do one every few days, and so I'll, in a 2 or 3 week period I can get that all boxed off, and I forget that I'm gonna want to take a day here and there and build a deck or there's other jobs that come up. Like I had a job the other day that I didn't know about until a couple of days before, and so that took half a day up, and then
there's bugs at school.
So the kids have. You never know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
And then we're still sort of dealing with the new website, so that's not launched yet. We're hoping to launch that soon, but we've still been writing copy and finding images. It's been a much bigger undertaking, hasn't it, than we expected. So if you are actually going to rebuild your whole website, make sure you kind of time it for a quiet bit of the season, because it's taken a long time, hasn't it, for us to do all the stuff we need to do. So yeah, big learning curve, that one. And what else?
That's it about it.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, yeah.
So the reason that we've titled this, the 5 key things we've learned in 5 years of business is because we are actually celebrating our 5 years anniversary in business, which is quite exciting, isn't it?
It's very exciting. It's unbelievable. Like 5 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think technically it was the 1st of May that like we officially said we'd started the business, but you know, we're kind of treating May as the month where it started back in 2017. So we're going to talk about the 5 things that the key things that we've learned in this podcast. And also it's a bit of a celebration for us because if you know, every year you're in business, it's kind of a milestone, isn't it?
Definitely.
And not every business makes it, you know, to 5 years. Most don't. You know, I don't know the figures. I haven't got them in front of me. I probably should have looked at this. But I think it's something crazy like, you know, 30 to 50% of businesses don't get past the first year or two. And then only kind of, I think it's something like 20 to 30% of them get to 5 years. That's like all businesses across the board. So, you know, and that could be for different reasons. And I would say that in this industry, in the photography, videography industry, you know, the wedding photography, videography industry, I would say the main reason, it might not be necessarily just a financial issue that people don't get to 5 years. I'd say it's people think, oh, I'm going to do this because it'll be fun or it'll be easy. And they kind of go into it with a particular idea in the head of what that's going to be like for them. And maybe, you know, after a couple of years of doing it, they realise that it's not going to be what they thought it was. It's not going to be all taking photos and making videos and just doing creative stuff, that there's actually some real graft in it. So maybe they think, well, I'll be better off just getting a job that is steady and secure, and then doing my photo and video stuff as a hobby. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just sort of, you know, I'm just assuming from some of the conversations you have with people. And
I mean, you worked with a photographer this past weekend, didn't you? Who, funnily enough, it will be kind of 4 years, almost to the weekend, when we met him at a wedding that he was doing the photographs on, and we learned then that he had a full-time trade profession.
Electrician, yeah.
Yeah, and was doing the photography on the side, and you caught up with him this weekend working at that job, and his position at the moment is that he's still working full-time doing his trade, and he's about to finish with his photography, isn't he?
Yeah, he's trying to stop doing weddings, and he said basically I still get, you know, the odd inquiry coming in, so I feel like I can't say no, but he's not, you know, he doesn't put any effort into getting jobs. So, and he's enjoying what he's doing, you know, as an electrician. And so yeah, he's not planning on sort of carrying on with it for, you know, after the next few bookings that is finished. And it's funny because I was talking to him about it, and obviously back then in 2018 we were very new to this, so we were just we were like sponges. Every time we went to a wedding and met somebody else, another photographer or whatever, we were just, you know, we were very inquisitive. We were trying to learn as much as possible and get those people's takes and their experiences on things. And I guess I think we both probably assumed then that he was like fairly experienced and everything. Actually, talking to him the other day, he'd only started 2 or 3 years before that, and he said that year was his busy year. That was his busiest year, and he did 18 weddings. Right. So I know he had a job as well, but he was basically, you know, 2-3 years in his business, and he had his busiest year with 18 weddings. And so I think I just assumed that, you know, he'd been doing it quite a while, and that he was doing like a lot of people, like all the, you know, 30, 40 plus weddings a year, and he wasn't. So it's an interesting one, because now I look back, I'm like, we've probably averaged, you know, 40 weddings a year for the last few years, apart from pandemic situation. And when you know, I don't think everybody's doing that volume. So
it's just another example of, it shows you the range of not only experience, but the range of backgrounds that people are coming from in doing this. And I know earlier on in this series of podcasts, we talked about the fact that there are people with full-time jobs that are doing this, and they might be doing it at the moment with a view to eventually leaving that full or part-time employed work to take this up as a full-time self-employment. Or it might be that, you know, there are people that are kind of doing that, but then, like Peter, have decided, actually, no, because for my sort of circumstances,
it works better for me doing
kind
that.
of works better for me doing the other thing. So then step back from what they're doing. And I bet there's, you know, tip of the iceberg from what, you know, just the conversations that we have with people. We'll meet everybody from those in a similar position to those just starting out, to those that are experienced and it's their full-time profession, and kind of everything in between. And so, and I think that's what's so great, isn't it, about this as a profession, because of that range of knowledge and experience that you get. And I love chatting to people, and like, you know, it'll be nice for you to catch up with Peter then and find out about what he's been up to and what's kind of helped him to arrive at that decision. But it's, you know, it is really nice kind of finding out from people, especially after the last couple of years, you know, what's their experience been, because you know, that's the thing.
It's definitely changed things for people as well, hasn't it?
You know, and perhaps that's a big part in his decision making. But you know, we're here celebrating five years as a kind of milestone. And I just, you know, when people kind of that we see at weddings now, so they do ask about the last sort of couple of years, and they do sort of say, how was that for you? And I feel so fortunate that, you know, we've come out the other end of it. I feel like we've come out the other end of it now, and we still have a successful business. We've still got a business
not everybody has.
No, sadly not.
Yeah.
No.
And this is the thing. So everybody's on a different path, and you know, when you look at what other people are doing, it's very easy to make some assumptions based on things that are posted on social media, or, you know, the snippets that you see. Maybe if you see them at a wedding, or maybe you see them, you know, getting a blog feature or winning an award or whatever. It's very easy to sort of make some assumptions, and those assumptions might be very different to the reality of kind of like how experienced they are, how many weddings they're doing, how well their business is functioning, how much money they're making, you know, how profitable and sustainable their business is. And that's why, you know, it's part of the reason why with this podcast so far, we have chosen to kind of discuss more of the business and try to be open and honest about how kind of it all works, because that's the bit that I don't think people are particularly honest about. Everyone wants to show off the best work, and everyone wants to say, well, I won an award, or I've got featured in this, and because that's the thing that they want to portray to the clients and their colleagues, you know, and their peers, because they want to say, yeah, I'm doing really well. But actually, the measure of how well you're doing, if you are doing this for a living, we're not talking about whether you're doing this for shits and giggles. We're talking about whether you're trying to live off it. Is your business in good shape? And that's why we focused on this so far. And after this podcast, we will be moving more into the kind of shooting, editing side of things, talking about practicalities of how you actually capture images, make films, things like that, because that's really important, and we want to talk about that. But up until now, we have focused more on the business stuff. And so this is kind of going to be what we're going to discuss now is 5 things, and it's kind of rounding up our kind of experiences of the last 5 years in kind of some very simple takeaways. You know, the things that if you concentrate on these things, your business is probably going to do better than if you're not concentrating on these things, and you're getting carried away with other things. Yeah.
I mean, there's tons, isn't there?
Yeah, we could have come up with a massive list.
There's loads.
But we tried to keep to 5, and we're going to try and keep it short.
Because we know what we're like.
Because we know we just babble on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1.
Go
for it.
Well, so we've written down organisation is key to success. Now, this could mean different things to different people, because everyone's got like a different organisational style, I guess. But to kind of keep it to how we would see it is if you're organised, and this is going to be across the board with lots of different things, it helps you to look professional. It stops you from feeling overwhelmed and stressed. And it's going to save you time. And if you're saving yourself time, then in the long run, you're going to be saving yourself money / making more money. Mm-hmm. So efficiency, I would say, is probably the most overlooked thing when it comes to creatives, because without sort of making too many assumptions, I think most people who have a creative brain and a creative, and their outlet is to make art and do things that are, like whether it's visual stuff like photography, videography, whether it's dance, whether it's music, whether it's acting, writing, these things are an outlet. And I know that unless I tie myself into being organised, because I think I'm quite an organised person. I know you're very organised. I think I'm quite an organised person, but it's more of a discipline for me because that creative side of my brain is always going. So things are coming in and out all the time, and I literally am sat there and something will just pop into my head. I have to make a note of it there and then. And the reason I make a note is because what I've learned is if I don't make a note, I'll start thinking about that thing in detail. I'll go off on a tangent, and then I'm not doing the thing I was supposed to be doing. So like my organisational style is to, and I was just joking before about the Post-it notes. I was saying, I don't know why I bother with Post-it notes, because there was just Post-it notes until I tidied up all over the desk, because one of my daughters got some Post-it notes out and put the Post-it notes there the other day. Anyway, and then I started writing notes on these Post-it notes. Well, I keep my notes in my phone now and I've got hundreds and hundreds of notes in my phone, but at least that's not like splattered all over the desk, like some kind of multicoloured sick. So the thing is I can kind of always be having these thoughts, and I would assume that most people who think creatively, who are creative people, do that. So organisation and efficiency is like the thing that's probably the most overlooked. And you get efficiency by having ways of doing things, processes, systems, having a way of organising yourself with whatever task it is keeps you on track. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, because I can't. My notes are to-do lists.
Yeah,
and it's a big, it's kind of a psychological thing, is ticking off the list, and I know I've done it, and I'm keeping myself accountable. I feel like I'm taking responsibility for something. If it's not on the list, then I'll forget about it.
Okay.
So, like in part of our sort of, goal setting and new website and things like that, we talked about, we need to draft up roles and responsibilities, and that's a really important one for me, because I guess I need to. That's the old copper mentality, I think, in me. Unless I know I've got a list to kind of do it, I'll just get so distracted by everyday things with family, things with the kids, things around the house. So I need to kind of make myself accountable in that respect with sort of a to-do list. And for me, efficiency comes from doing those.
Yeah.
And that kind of repeated behaviour. And, it's similar, I guess, to making a note for it. And it's just in a different form for me. And I just need to see that I've ticked that off and I've done that to kind of keep me on my toes. But it also helps me think about, well, okay, you did that and that. Why didn't you just do all that in one go? Or, why didn't you kind of structure your time a little bit better? So it's a good kind of active learning process for me about how to reach efficient processes. And I would say just kind of a great example of something that gives you the efficiency and ensures that you are keeping it on top of things. And, you know, only a few weeks ago, kind of talking about customer service and things like that, the CRM that we use is a massive one for us.
Yeah. Without that, I don't know why. I don't know why anyone wouldn't use a CRM, because it just makes the whole process of keeping organised with your customer management, you know, your relationship with your customer automated and organised. Yeah.
But even things like, you know, if you break it down to like a wedding day as well, being organised on a wedding day. So let's say, you know, we kind of work in a system where we've got questionnaires that our clients will fill out. So that kind of gives us the itinerary for the day, the running order of the day. So as part of packing the bags and doing the kit check for everything on the day of the wedding, those questionnaires are going in there. Yeah. And I would anticipate that you guys all have something very similar, whether it's a questionnaire or whether it's a checklist or whether it's just written down or typed on a piece of paper or maybe just in a note on your phone. You know, you've got the key times of the day, you've got the names of people, you've got the locations for where you need to be.
Yeah.
Those things are massive for a wedding day, because I tell you why you need to be organised, but also kind of not so rigid with what's written in front of you. You have to be flexible, because what if something doesn't go according to that plan that's written down there? What if it's chucking it down outside? Yeah. When the weather told you it was going to be a sunny day, and so you've got in your mind for this location that's fantastic that you've been waiting to go to, you've got all these different locations outside that you want to take the couple to for photographs or for some time for the wedding film that you're making for them, but you can't because it's chucking it down. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and then it's about having sort of a contingency or a backup plan.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. The first thing we will do, and this is we're kind of staying on the organisation point here, because it's part of organisation, and it's like, right, we're going to this wedding, you know, venue. This is where the wedding is today. Right, first thing I'll do while I'm going around and getting some establishing shots or taking photos of the detail type stuff and sort of setting the scene, is I'm walking around that venue. Now, if you've been there before, it's a bit different, but if it's a brand new venue, I'm walking around and thinking, right, so this is a nice spot, and I'm looking at I'm looking at where the sun's going to be at that time, because there are apps that can help you do this. And I'm thinking that'd be a good spot. But I'm also walking around potentially inside, and I'm thinking, where would I do it if it's raining? Where would I do the group shots if it's raining? Where would I do the couples portraits if it's raining? Because there's nothing worse than, you know, you're basically on a wedding day going boff, 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 boff. You know, it's a bit chilled out in the morning. And then once you get to like before the ceremony, it's boff, 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 all the way through to like, you know, when they sit down to have their meal. So you've got a 2 to 3, 4 hour period where you don't really have time to be like, let me just have a massive think about this. And if you're starting to make a new plan at that point, you're creating stress for yourself. So as part of being efficient, part of like relieving stress and overwhelm, we're basically going, that's where I'm going to go if it's nice, and if it's not nice, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to need to set my flash up. You know, maybe I'm going to have to put some lights up or whatever. I'm going to do it. I know what I'm going to do. I know where I'm going to put them. I know I'll have enough space there. I've checked with the venue staff, you know, is it going to be cool for me to do that there? You know, nobody's going to come and plonk, you know, a string quartet there, are they? Because this is the sort of thing. Like, for instance, a ceremony, you know, going into a ceremony, you've been and checked the room out, or you've checked the church out, and you're like, yep, cool. I know exactly where I'm standing. This is more if you're doing video, because obviously with photo you can move around a lot easier. But with video, if you want to position your cameras, and then you get there and you're like, oh shit, there's a string quartet exactly where I was going to put my tripod. Like, there's nothing worse, because then you've got 10 minutes before the start of the ceremony, and then now you're starting to feel stressed because you had a plan, but it's not, you didn't have a backup plan, or you hadn't been organised enough to think ahead of like, well, what might happen. So just the more you can do to be organised, the better. Yeah.
And I think just to kind of box that one off nicely, in terms of organisation, think of it in two different kind of respects. Think of the micro as in before, during, after that client's wedding.
Yeah.
How can you be organised?
Oops, sorry.
And the macro within your business. How can you ensure efficiency in what you're doing day to day? How can you be organised, not just in the practical side of your business when it comes to your editing and delivery to clients, but how can you also be organised when it comes to the other aspects, the day-to-day running of your business, the long-term ambition, medium or long-term ambition of your business? Yeah. How can that be organised as well? Yeah,
and that brings us on to point number 2, which is having a plan. So you might think, well, having a plan, that sounds very same as organisation. Well, what we're talking about is we're talking about the bigger picture. So I think it's very easy to, if you're a sole trader, you know, a single person running a business or a very small team, you're wearing all these different hats. You're trying to be, you know, the bookkeeper and the accountant. You're trying to be the shooter. You're trying to be the editor. You're trying to do all the customer communications, you know, the marketing, yeah, all the admin stuff. It is like, it's relentless, isn't it? And once, when you first start, you might have a bit more time, but then once things start to get busier, if you haven't kind of thought, and this brings us back, we talked about goal setting, didn't we? And if you haven't got a business plan that kind of incorporates a few years worth of, this is my goal, my long-term agenda, this is where I'm trying to get to. If you haven't got that, which, you know, I think most people probably don't make a proper business plan when they start a business like this, because you're not going for investment. You're not going to ask for a loan. It is a case of like, I'm just going to, you know, most people just start by taking photos or making videos, and then it just spirals. And that's what happened with us. We didn't sit down, in May 17, we didn't sit down with a business plan in our hands. No. With forecasting and, you know, on finances and all the rest of it. We didn't. No. And it's only in the latter stages, and certainly in January of this year, that we consciously sat down and for the first time, with some real focus and commitment to it, actually made a plan. Like a written plan. I think there's always been plans in our heads. There's always been ideas and kind of plans, and this is where that's where the problem comes, isn't it? Because it's like, oh, I've got another idea. Oh, another idea. Yeah. That obviously my creative mind is going idea. Some of those ideas just get stepped on, and some of those ideas are like, oh shit, now we've got a studio. So so it's kind of, you've got to think bigger. And as part of that, you've got to be prepared to invest in your business. Yeah. So people, and I'm saying this because I see people posting things. I'll give you an example. I saw a post on a Facebook group yesterday, and it was someone saying about a music subscription. So they were saying, is this music subscription, this is how much my music subscription is, and this is how much this other music subscription is that I'm considering. And they were asking, is it worth it? Okay. Well, you've got to ask yourself, is it worth it to you? Right? It doesn't really freaking matter whether it's worth it to anybody else. Saying, is it worth it? There must be like 50 to 100 posts about the difference between these two music subscriptions on that group. That if, you know, you could search through them, or if you were just on there from time to time, you would probably read one of these threads, because people are saying, what's the difference between this one and this one? I'm not mentioning them for a good reason, because I'm not trying to get into that. But the point is one of them's expensive, but the music's far better, right? It's up to you whether you decide that that's a good investment for your business. If you're making professional wedding films and you want them to be the best they can be, you decide whether you want to invest in the music or not. Right? If that's not important to you and you think that, well, it's all working out fine using this other one, it's cheaper, then that's perfect for you, isn't it? But you've got to be prepared to invest in that. And it's the same with marketing. You know, people will be like, I don't want to raise my prices because I don't get enough bookings as it is, and so I'm not going to get enough bookings if I raise my prices. And, you know, how, you know, should I spend money on Facebook and Instagram adverts? Should I spend money on Google adverts? Should I do wedding fairs? All of this stuff shouldn't even really be a question. It should be, the question should be, which one works? Which one fits my business plan better? Yeah. What's my agenda? What's my goal? But every single business should be preparing to invest some money into marketing, whether it's 100 quid or 10,000 quid a year. They should be prepared to spend some money on it. They should be prepared to spend money on things like music licensing if you're a wedding filmmaker, you know, or a CRM, or you know, software to help you to edit faster, a camera that's going to help you do something better. You know, it's going to help you get the images that you want better. A computer that's going to allow you to edit faster. Yeah. These things aren't really a question. The question is like, which one's going to work best for me, and what money do I have available to do that?
How do I budget
for this? Yeah. And everyone's going to have a different, you know, they're going to have a different outcome that they're trying to get. They're at a different place in the business. They've got different financial means, and that will affect these things. But everyone should be budgeting for doing something. Otherwise, you're not running a business, are you?
No. And when you talk about, so as part of the planning, it could be that you realise that some of your goals, or the kind of steps that you're going to take in order to be able to achieve those goals, need not only a financial investment, but they need an investment of your time and your effort as well. And so when we talk about invest into your business, equally important is the time and effort. Because not just because we've spent the best part of the last 5 years being perpetual students as well, but I think, you know, every day's a school day for us. And I hope that we never lose sight of that. And I think that's something that we kind of really enjoy, is learning new things. Again, not on the macro, not thinking, well, I need to enroll in a university course. No. A few weeks ago, I bought a course on Udemy. Yeah. And did a course on there. 15 hours, that's all it took. But I spread it out over a couple of weeks, just an hour here and there. Yep. Because that was important for me to be able to
understand something
to learn,
better.
Yeah, and upskill myself, because it was important for a goal that we had set. Yeah. And so I might not necessarily see the benefit from that or the reward for that today, but I know why I've done it. And again, it keeps me accountable, and it keeps me focused on what the goals are that we've made. Yeah. And so the investment in the time, it was a very small, you know, very reasonable, the courses on there, and there's lots and lots of different online course providers, but the monetary investment was very small. The time investment for me was a bit more, but it was so worth it. Yeah. And so that's, for me, that's really important as well when you're thinking about your planning. Yeah. And how you invest into.
And day to day, you know, if I don't kind of feel like there's something, if there's something that I want to kind of make better, whether it's, you know, a photo that I'm editing, or a video that I'm editing, or I know that I'm going to a wedding and I want to try and use a different technique to take an image or whatever, I'm going to spend a bit of time researching that. And if I can't find it, you know, on YouTube or by like searching the web, then I'm gonna think about where I can do that. And an example would be, I've spent money on mentoring, not to learn how to use my camera, but because because we were doing the podcast, and because we have, you know, ambition to kind of do more educational stuff. I wanted to know from somebody who's done a lot of educational stuff, and who I kind of look at and think, I like the way they've done that. I wanted to know more about that. And so my plan, this is during the pandemic when there was no money coming in. I spent hundreds of pounds on having that person give me some mentoring sessions to talk me through what kind of they'd done, and how that kind of impacted on things, and how that got them to where they wanted to be. So, you know, that's having a plan. and it's taking the time to invest in something. And while we're kind of in that area of talking about spending money, understanding your finances. So as part of that plan, understanding your finances is really key. We could make that a separate thing, but it should be just a given when you're running a business that you have some sort of grip. You don't need to be a qualified accountant. You just need to understand that, money come in, money go out. We need to make sure all that balances. And the way that you improve that, we've talked about pricing in previous episodes, but if you're running a business, your pricing is a very important aspect of balancing those books and creating growth in your business. We won't go into that again, but we've talked about it in other episodes. I think it was episode 17 that we did on pricing, and we've talked about costs in another one. These things are key. And if you haven't listened to those podcasts and you're listening to this one, we suggest you go listen to those, because they're covering things that they're going to be the biggest elements to help you grow your business if you're trying to make it, bigger, more sustainable, more successful, bring you more money in.
Cool. So 2 down.
2 down.
Number 3. Clients. Couples. They are key in this thing called business. In what we're doing, photography, videography, in weddings, the couple is key. Why? Well,
funnily enough, we haven't talked about photos or videos yet, have we? We haven't talked about your films or your best photos, because your photography and your filmmaking is kind of a given if you're doing this as a business. You need to be good, because 80% of the people who are earning money from photo and video, whether it's in weddings or outside of weddings, they're good enough from a competency perspective. We're not questioning, most people are not going to be questioning, is this person who I'm hiring to shoot my wedding or whatever it is, are they good enough to, get shots in focus, be at the right place at the right time to capture the moment? That we're kind of, are they going to be able to get all my group shots? Am I going to end up with, no photos, blurry photos, poorly lit photos? We're kind of at a point where, yes, there will be some exceptions, but the majority of people doing this are going to be good enough to deliver a decent product. Obviously, the rest is, a different area. It's open to personal preference, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the thing that's going to make the difference is your client. So what do your couples want? What are your couples looking for? And rather than focusing on the photo side of things or the video side of things, because you should be good at that and that should just be happening, focus on what it is that your couples want and listen to them and aim to deliver that, because they're the people that are paying us, they're the people that are trying to make happy and impress. Everybody else is a bit irrelevant to it. How do the things that you produce connect with the client? How does your branding make them feel? Because to attract those couples, we need to make sure that they connect with not just the images and the videos that they see, but that they connect with your brand, with you. And how does the overall service that you're going to provide to them leave them feeling? So from start to finish, was it a good experience? Not just good, but exceptional.
Yeah. I mean, our ethos has been from quite early on, and I think still is, and going through our rebranding and the website design process, we got to kind of delve into that again and think about what are our kind of core values, if you like, and what's important to us when it comes to the transaction or that process of a client choosing you, you delivering a service to them, that end product, you know, what things are important to us in that. And we came back to and still really, really believe in relationship over transaction.
Yeah.
Because it's so much more, and I don't even like using the word, but it's I don't think we've found a better way of kind of just summing it up nicely in a few words, but relationship over transaction, because it's so much more to that. And building relationships with your clients, for us, in and out of their weddings, has been huge.
Yeah.
And it spills over into the standard and the level of customer service that you're providing, into the experience that they have, into whether or not they will advocate for you to other family members, other friends, whether you then get the opportunity to be able to then do a further wedding or an event from someone within the circle of that particular couple.
Yeah.
You know, and just a few weeks ago we were talking about the fact that we're on our way to the third wedding for this particular family that we've been involved in, and another one, it was another family member of a bride and groom, but then off of that there are different friendship circles and things, and it's like the trail, isn't it? You know, in Friends they make reference to you've got to do the trail.
Bit of a different scenario.
Oh, very different, yeah. So bad example. Yeah, forget that.
It's a good episode.
Forget that. Yeah, sorry. But absolutely, yeah. So relationship over transaction, and again we can relate it back to certainly point number one when we talk about organisation in our business, and we'd mentioned having a CRM. You know, that's just helped us to make sort of managing that relationship and allowing that relationship to kind of blossom. That's just made the communication element of that just nice and crisp and organised for us, and it's meant that it's an efficient process. And so, yeah, I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
But that's just your relationships with your clients, isn't it?
Yeah, and then there's other business owners, other photographers, other filmmakers, other suppliers, everybody that you come into contact with. You just to kind of give you an analogy, you know, there's a reason if you've got a tradesperson working on your house, doing some sort of work, if you have a bad experience with that person, you're certainly not going to recommend them to people, and you're not going to use them again. And the reason is, it's not about, we don't have to make best mates with his clients because we're doing a job for them. You know, if you want to become friends with them and go out for dinner with them afterwards, that's up to you. We're not saying that that's what's happening. It's very rare that we actually keep in proper touch with people. We'll keep in touch with them on social media, as in we'll follow them and they'll follow us. And that's a great thing because they're kind of constant advocates, aren't they? Posting on things and commenting when they see new stuff and liking other people's things. They become these, you know, silent advocates, if you like. But at the same time, you don't have to become best mates with them and be meeting up with them and chatting to them on phone. But it's more like if you have a good experience with a tradesperson, you're going to use them again, and then you're going to recommend them to people. And it's the same if you go out for dinner, you know, and you have a bad experience at a meal, you're not going to go back there because, you know, even if the food's good, you're not going to go back if like the waiter was a knobhead. So you've got to kind of like think about the big picture. And that's kind of what we have found has been far more important than
just getting the bookings.
Just getting the bookings and then delivering something to them. Even if there's something that you deliver is amazing, it's not going to be as effective as if like the thing you deliver them is okay, but the rest of the service was awesome as well.
Yeah.
Number 4 is
why?
This is why.
Why do we do this?
Yeah, it's understanding why we do something. And this isn't like something that we've just learned through doing this. No. This is something that we've kind of learned through life previously, isn't it? So I would say we've kind of carried this all the way through the last 20 years of our lives, learning things. And understanding why you do it is kind of really important. It's as important as understanding how to do something. So when you're doing something that's quite technical, like, you know, technical and creative, like photography, like videography, filmmaking, knowing how to do something is one step. But if you don't actually know why you do it, if you've just heard someone say, this is how we do it, but you don't know why you do it that way, then how do you know if that's actually the right way to do it? And this is, you know, I had this a lot in our previous career, didn't I? I was banging my head against a brick wall because something like the police service, they've done stuff the same way for 30 to 40 years. So what they were doing in the 70s and 80s, they're still doing in the 2000s and 2010s. Or they were. I'm talking in the past tense now. But they had
so much inefficiency.
So much inefficiency. So much
waste.
Wrong ways of doing it because things have changed, because technology has changed, because the world has changed, how people do things, how people interact and behave is changed. And there's so much stuck in the olden kind of way of thinking that was inefficient. I won't go into all those examples, but this is huge also in this industry, because we can see we weren't taking photos professionally 10, 20 years ago. So we haven't worked on film. I mean, I have taken photos on film when I used to have my little 35mm point and shoot as a kid, and I used to take my roll of film to boots. But I didn't, you know, that wasn't proper photography. So, you know, we've not had the experience of working with film, and we got into this 5 years ago. We've never owned a DSLR. I've used them, but we never owned one. We bought Sony mirrorless cameras when they were quite early on, because we were focusing at the time on video. And from what I was reading and all the things I was sort of watching, for video, Sony seemed to be making the most progressive moves in terms of like the functionality and the quality that was coming out of the small mirrorless cameras at the time. But for photography, people like sneered at it. So obviously we've bought these Sony mirrorless cameras, we're doing video on them, we're getting good results, and then we start doing photography and we start using the same cameras because they're good photography cameras as well. And you would get people like, oh, you're using Sony for photo, like, and what have you. And we found this, well, it didn't really bother us, but we found this really confusing because we were like, I don't really understand what people are bothered about. I don't understand what they're getting out of their DSLRs that we're not getting out of this. Fast forward 4 years, everybody's switching to Sony pretty much. Yes, I'm not saying every single person, but a huge proportion of like the photo community is switching to Sony, because everyone's started to realise that Sony are making really good cameras, and that they're, yes, and the other ones, Canon and Nikon and what have you, they're all catching up now, but for the last sort of 5 years, Sony have been the ones that have been pushing the boundaries. Even when it comes
like
to
Fuji have brought out things so that there have been other manufacturers, other companies, haven't there, that have produced cameras that kind of break the mold of, like you've just said, the Canon and the Nikons. No, that's what you need. Exactly. And is it?
And you would have these conversations with people where they would literally look down their nose at you because you weren't using Canon or Nikon, and it doesn't matter to us, but it's just interesting because it shows us the same issue there as what we used to face in the police, where everyone's stuck in the way of thinking of like, well, this is how it's always been done, and these have always been the best cameras, and it doesn't really, it's like people don't look into it for themselves. They hear somebody else who's using that or thinks that's good, so, well, I like that person and I trust that person, so they're saying it must be right. They don't look at, you know, a range of things. They don't read different things that contradict and conflict. I always do that because I don't believe people. You know, I'm never going to believe just one person. I want to hear a range of experiences. I'm always looking for the bad reviews as well. I want to see what experiences people have had. And, you know, what's another one, Lynn's, like the whole...
Lenses. Prime lenses and zoom lenses.
Yeah.
gosh, is huge. But again, we came into doing this at a time where, I don't know how far along in the journey, because I don't know what came before. So those that favoured prime lenses then, and perhaps still do now, avoid or prefer not to use zoom lenses, whereas personally my experience has been with the right zoom lens, it just gives me so much more flexibility from, when you consider, let's take the bride prep setup, for instance. For me, a zoom lens in there is perfect, okay? And with the cameras that we've used, the sort of quality of the image that's been coming out, there's no doubt about the fact that when we put the 85 on the camera, it's a beautiful image that comes out of there. And you can definitely see the difference between that and a 24-70 zoom that I might use. However, I'm not finding myself in a position whereby mid-shot of trying to capture something, I'm getting flustered and having to worry because I've got the wrong size lens on.
Which is something you obviously come across quite a bit.
Which is something that I've come across, and I just find that I can, again, part of our kind of, way of alleviating the concerns of some of our clients of, I don't want a camera in my face, I don't want to be quite close up. No problem. I can stick to what I've told you I'm going to do. I can be discreet and I can be stood quite a distance back from you, but I can still get the shots that I want.
Yeah.
For particularly when it comes to the filmmaking, and I understand that there's definitely going to be a difference between when you're considering it from a photography perspective to the videography. But for us, we kind of like to be able to create sequences in the storytelling that we're doing. And so an aspect of sequencing for us is going to be short, mid, long range.
Yeah.
Well, I can do that all on one lens.
Yeah.
And I can do that from one position, and I can give you 3 different perspectives for when you're putting the film together. I'm not going to say that my way is the right way or our way is the right way either, because I don't know previously how good or bad zoom lenses were. I only know what we've had the experience of being able to use. But I know the reasons why I enjoy being able to have the flexibility of a zoom lens for different parts of the day.
Yeah, definitely. And I totally agree as well. That's exactly how I feel. I've just bought a brand new zoom lens, just bought the Tamron 35-150. I've used it on 2 weddings, and I was just like, it was like it solved every issue I've ever had with lens choice. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to even think about lens choice. I could just shoot the whole day, one camera, one lens, and get pretty much exactly the same results as having to use 3 or 4 different lenses.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out that was on, so this past weekend when you used that, one day was film only, but the first day that you used it, it was film and photo. Yeah. So for hybrid shooting,
it's amazing. And I'm not gonna sort of sing all its praises until I've tested it a bit more. I want to use it for a bit and really kind of look through all the images, look through all the videos, and really sort of think about whether it has done that, it has changed things.
But it's just that kind of it's just that. So a few weeks ago, you were talking about a photographer that you were with and working on a wedding film, and during the portraits, during the different group shots, amidst those, the kind of panic on this photographer because they were having to switch between them. And it's so one thing thinking about efficiencies, but also secondly, again, just thinking of looking after yourself on that day, and take out, if you can remove that element of kind of stress or worry, but you're doing that because it's like an old wives' tale. It's like what my mum told me about doing X, Y, or Z when I was younger. Am I still doing that today because I think it's because she's done it and that's what she told me I should do?
Yeah,
so
30
years ago. But so should I not be open then to kind of other people that might be sort of, trying a different way? Should I not be open to the fact that technology has changed? There will be improvements all the time in different things. So again, it's a quest for efficiency, flexibility. Does this lend itself to the way that I want to be able to work for my clients and the way that I'm telling them that I work?
Yeah.
And it's personal preference.
And obviously we've used a couple of examples there that are quite tech related. But you could kind of use that analogy as well to like, well, I don't want to use a CRM because I use Google Forms and that works just fine for me. Yeah. But you've never actually tried. You've never actually experienced using the CRM, so you don't actually know what is going to change. What extra something it might give you. Yeah. On top, or there's loads of these things.
Loads of, isn't there? I don't want to use an accountant. That's going to cost me money. I can use a spreadsheet and add it up myself. Yeah.
Believe me, I'm off to see my accountant after we've recorded this, and I'm glad I ain't doing that, right? Because he's having a job on. So, so my mind would be fried, wouldn't it?
Going there. But yeah, so I guess, key thing there, understand why you are doing something, not just at the core of why are you a wedding videographer or photographer, but the small things, the day-to-day things. Why is it that you're doing that in a particular way? Why is it that you're using a particular piece of equipment?
Yeah.
Are there other ways? And it's the difference between, and I don't want to get all cliched on it, but it's the difference between having a fixed mindset, and that's the way I've always done it, and I've always got particular results by doing things this way, to having a more open or growth mindset, if you want to call it.
If you want to get all fancy.
If you want to get all fancy, yeah, just having a more open mind to other ways that I can do things that would be good.
Which is a nice segue into number 5, which is we're always learning, looking to improve. Okay, so yeah, it might be a bit cliche, but self-improvement and improvements in your business to progress, it's going to lead to growth and enjoying the sort of experience of having a sustainable business, because you haven't kind of just, like all the stuff we've just been talking about, doing it the same way it's always been done. It's about looking at, do I feel like I'm, we're definitely at a stage now where we could just say, we've been doing this a while now, we've got good ways of doing things. We'll just do it exactly the same every time. But even though we might follow a bit of a pattern to keep us organised, we definitely are always trying to stretch and trying to improve a little bit, aren't we? Nobody's coming back to us and saying we're not happy with this, we're not happy with that. So we could just take that and go, well, if we just repeat it, it'll be fine. But we are always trying to just do something a little bit different, aren't we?
Yeah.
Improve a little bit, learn something new.
Yeah.
It's about the small things, isn't it?
It is.
It's a bit like fitness or, anything like that. It's the little 1% gains on a regular basis that lead to this overviewing picture of improvement. And when you look back, if we look at where we were 5 years ago, crikey, would you have ever thought that you would be in a position where you knew all the stuff and you're able to do all the stuff you're able to do?
No.
And that hasn't happened overnight.
No.
Has it?
No. And it never would. And it, with the best will in the world, and with the very best knowledge, the very best experience, nobody could be making, if we think of it in percentages, nobody's making 50% improvement, 80% improvement on that. I think it's about caring about the 1%.
Yeah.
And yes, I heard that elsewhere on a podcast, that's why a particular podcast feels that it's become successful. And I think I really believe that's us through and through. We're not looking to make a 10% improvement overnight. We're not hoping that because we set out some goals at the start of the year and how we're going to achieve them, just like that, 25% better. No, well, how are you going to get 25% better at something? For us, it's always about the small, tiniest of details, the 1%, and caring about those little details.
Absolutely. Okay, so that is the 5 things, but we're going to throw, before we wrap up, we're going to throw a couple of bonuses in there.
Yeah, why not?
So other helpful things we've learnt too. Be comfortable saying no, and this could be someone wants to pay you less than what you charge. It could be something you don't really want to do, because it's going to leave you feeling a bit bad. You're not going to enjoy it, or you're going to feel quite negative about what you're having to do. And we're saying that because we've been there. I certainly am there fairly regularly still. How often, I remember, I shouldn't really say this, but Lindsay had to go and do a wedding for me once because we were doing this wedding, and I just, for some reason, I think it was in 2019, and we'd done a lot of weddings, and I'd say, I mean, I've already told this story in the last couple of podcasts, haven't I? But I was getting to kind of that burnout period, and I just, it was a client we should have never taken. Not because of nothing to do with them. It's not their fault. It's just that it's our fault for agreeing to do their wedding because they wanted something completely different to what we do, and because I got these feelings of they're not going to be happy because it was the groom that just seemed a bit odd as well, didn't he? Some of the communications he'd made. Anyway, you ended up saying, look, I'll go do the wedding, instead, because it's not going to do you any good to do it. And it's learning about stuff like that, isn't it? Just knowing that if you're really not feeling good about it, just say no.
But again, it just shows what despite our best intentions, it shows what a scattergun approach it was. And in some respects, how we just weren't focused on, we didn't have a clue who our ideal client was. No. And that's why we thought we knew a bit. We thought we knew. But we were still at a stage of, we're building. We just got to take the jobs. Just take the jobs. Just build them up. We didn't understand that. And if we had have, perhaps we'd have made different decisions. And I think it's a really good point, is this, Jules, because it would be so easy to, particularly if you have thing in terms of thinking about your projections for the year, and you are actively looking at your finances, and you're thinking, I've got a quieter period then, I've looked at my wall chart, my calendar, and I could do with an extra job then, and this inquiry's come in, and do you know what, I can do that. And it's difficult, isn't it?
It's very difficult.
It's really difficult.
I mean, we had an inquiry just this morning, and you were like, because we've kind of already said we're not going to take any more, and you were like, it's on a Wednesday in June, this June. I take it you wanted to do that one. And I was like, yeah. Do you know what? It probably isn't a good idea, but these are the problems you have when you're running a business and you know there's money on the table. So it
is. It's tricky, but it can be quite an empowering thing as well. And I think if you've invested the time in understanding where you want to take your business, you've set your goals, you've put that time into understanding, what is your kind of business's identity, who are the people that you want to attract to your business, what are your own personal and professional goals, then if you can, as far as possible, if you can kind of stay true to that, then feeling comfortable with saying no can be a very kind of empowering thing, and I think great for your kind of confidence and just will.
Because people will also ask you to do all sorts of stuff that's outside of weddings. Oh, you're a photographer. Believe me, sometimes you get yourself into some oh God, I wish I wasn't doing this. However, just to balance this out, on the flip side, don't be afraid to say yes. So be comfortable saying no.
Yes to something new, something outside your comfort zone.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so that's been, I would put that down. I'd put a huge percentage of our success down to basically just not stopping because you're scared. Like just saying yes, even though you're not really 100% sure what you're doing, but you're comfortable and confident you'll be able to work it out and you'll be able to deliver, but it's going to be uncomfortable. So stepping outside your comfort zone and trying new things. And I've probably mentioned this previously, but whenever we do something and we've never done it before, like, you know, the first time we ever did photo wedding, we'd been doing plenty of video weddings, but first time we did a photo wedding, we did it for free because I'm not going to charge someone for something that I've never done before, and we can't 100% back up with, yeah, well, we've done this before. After that, yeah, charge. And it's the same with a lot of things. You know, the first corporate jobs we ever did, because we're trying to build up the corporate side of the business as well now. And the first corporate jobs we didn't charge for them, and actually delivered a really good product for the clients. But that's, you know, that's a way of, and it was a bit of a risk doing that, because you could look like a bit of a, if you mess it up, you'd look really bad, and you know, you can think all sorts of negative connotations, but if you don't actually have a go, you never know. And so sometimes it's just good to say yes, and be comfortable saying no. Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Okay, so gear is a tool. Another one, gear is a tool. It really isn't important what brand, what type of equipment you use, whether it's DSLR, whether it's mirrorless, primes or zooms, whether it's Canon or Sony, doesn't matter, okay? What is important is it's a tool, so you need to feel comfortable and confident with it. It needs to be reliable. And you need to know that it's going to get you the results you want as efficiently as possible. And I can hold my hand up and say I'm proper into my tech and my gear. Lindsay couldn't care less, I don't think.
Shh. I'm supposed to say that.
And you know, I love it. I love camera equipment and computers and lighting and mics and all sorts of stuff. But what I'll say is, and I can tell you this, and I'll probably do another podcast talking about this, I have bought so much stuff that was pointless because I saw other people talking about it and saying they needed it and it was good.
That's why the accountant really wants to talk to you this afternoon. What is this you bought now?
And so there's been a lot of like money wasted on stuff that doesn't get used. It's just sat around. Okay, it's probably, in fact, it's stored now. It doesn't even have, there's no point selling it because no one will want to buy it. But like, also, we've also spent, like I've just bought that new lens. That lens was 1,700 quid. You know, we've bought really good cameras. You know, we haven't bought the middle of the road cameras. We've bought the really good cameras like Sony A1. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because this is our job, and like I feel like we get the most, we get the tool that's going to help us do the job as efficiently and as to as good a standard as possible. And that camera was going to do that. So that's why we got it. I didn't get it because I really want to be a Sony A1 fanboy. I couldn't care less. I just want to know that we're going to be able to do the job as well as we want, and it be efficient and, you know, get the results we want. So
yeah,
hugely.
and reliable. Because to contrast to that, what camera, you know, we still use one of the first cameras we ever bought as a secondary camera, as an additional angle for whether it's a ceremony or speeches or anything like that, because it's proven to be reliable. And so
it's been going for 5 years.
Yeah. So which just reinforces kind of your point in terms of your decision making around what gear you get. We've made a decision to invest in some new cameras and lenses in the last year or two, but we know the reason that we've done that.
Yeah.
But it certainly wasn't influenced by other videographers or photographers, because we felt we needed to keep up. Exactly.
And the main thing is that you know the basics of using your equipment, and then you know that you've got the right equipment to get the job done. And then the best thing is then the best place to focus your energy is not on the gear, but on what you're doing with it, and getting those images, getting those videos. Focus on that bit. You know, not becoming don't overcomplicate it with the technical aspects, because that's something like people thinking, I need to learn how to do this lighting technique, I need to learn how to do this thing. It's very, on a wedding day, that's a very that's great in a studio, right? Or on a film set, or on a time where you've got loads of time to create something. But on a wedding day, you need to get results quickly. So what you need to be focusing on is your couple and what it is that you need to get for them. And I'll give you an example there.
Because, and I'm sorry, just to interrupt. So, you will know from your kind of consultation with that couple what it is specifically that they want. And we all know amongst us, there are photographers who can do amazing things with light and off-camera flash and things like that. And so clients that want that particular look, that kind of editorial particular look, will migrate towards those. And again, that's going to come back to your branding and connecting with your ideal client, doesn't it? But and people that don't, so we shouldn't find ourselves in a position where they're expecting something different. Yes, where we're surprised with that on the day. Yeah. And so if you understand that and they kind of understand that, because we're on the same sort of line in terms of, they know what they want from you and things, then that shouldn't be something that, that you're having to worry about, like you say. Yeah. Yeah.
The example I was going to give is variable ND filters. So for videography, I've seen so many people talk about variable ND filters. And when you're talking about filmmaking, like cinematography, filmmaking, an ND filter, or landscape photography, for instance, a variable ND filter or an ND filter is like a really important tool for creating, making sure that you stick to the rules of how you should set your camera up to capture something and get exposure right and everything. And that is all good and well. And so then you'll hear people say, oh, well, I just do this. I just use these settings in the camera. Like I'll bump the shutter. I'll put a really high shutter speed that shouldn't be used for like filmmaking. And it's really frowned upon, by the people that are over technical. Now, I went and bought some variable ND filters because I was like, I need to up my game, blah, blah, blah. I need to be like all the big players here, the big dogs. And I have tried to use these variable ND filters, and there is just nothing that comes close to just being able to quickly move that shutter, right? Especially when the way we work and we're doing photo and video together sometimes. I don't want to be messing around. It's okay if you've got a variable ND filter on the front of the camera. You can just turn the dial and it makes things lighter or darker. Perfect. Then when you go inside and you've still got the chuffing ND filter on, right, then you've got to take it off, right, because it's too dark now you're inside. And this happens a lot on a wedding day, inside, outside, and I don't want that. I don't want that extra piece of stress, or like, what if the lighting conditions change outside, going from bright sunlight to darker shadow? But I just don't want that. And honestly, it doesn't make any difference. So like, it don't make any difference to what the couple gets. They don't care. But you're like stressing yourself out with this variable ND filter. I bought one that was like 250 quid that's got this special thing that you can just screw it and it go on front of any camera like that. I still don't use it because of the amount of times I've dropped it on the floor and it's like 250 quid piece of glass that I just, what's the point in taking it on and off, on and off, on and off? So that was a little ranty.
No, that's okay.
Last one, and we'll wrap it up quick here. Your work is subjective. So what one person thinks is amazing, another won't like it at all, right? And that is art for you, I used to work at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and for years, it's open to the public, and you get like every sort of person coming to look around, they come in there to have a walk because it's a lovely place to have a walk, and then it's got all these sculptures and pieces of art installations plonked all over the place. I mean, this is going back 20 years. It's a bit more upmarket, there's a bit more to it now. But back then it was just like, there'd be sculptures outside, just outside. And people just were so like, I don't even get this, right? And I didn't get a lot of it either. And that's okay because it's, what one person likes, another person doesn't. It's personal taste. So trying to seek approval from everybody won't lead to a good place. The best way to be happy, I think, and this is what we've done, I think, is kind of experiment. So we've tried different things. We've tried whether we like this look, you know, whether it's aesthetically with colour and things like that, or whether it's a style of editing, video, a style of shooting, you know, trying different lenses out and seeing what the results are. Trying different approaches to kind of the wedding day and the sorts of films or you know, galleries that you deliver. And that's how you find your expression. And then you find what you like doing and how that connects with the couples. And then you do that. And you don't worry whether it's part of the, you know, whether it follows the same thing as what other people are doing and you're part of the gang and people are getting all this attention. Because what happens is someone does something and everybody sort of like jumps on it and everyone starts to try to replicate it and they're all doing the same sort of style, and that's fair enough. And if that's doing well for you, that's absolutely fine. But, you know, that's not, you shouldn't be trying to fit in or impress, because it's a creative artistic output. We're trying to express through it and find our own thing. And then, you know, you will find the couples that love what you do, not just want the same as what they've seen on Instagram by 50 odd different people.
That's a good place to wrap things up then.
Yeah.
I'm sure this episode was called 5 Things, but
500 things. Told you those ones were a bonus. Maybe we should have stuck with the 5 and we might have got it under an hour this time.
No, that's good. Hopefully there have been things in there that you've been able to kind of relate to in some way, or you know, perhaps you have your own 5 things or your own list of things that you've learned from your time in business as a wedding photographer or videographer. And so we, you know, as always, we'd love to hear those, because we certainly don't in this podcast profess to be the expert on all of it, and our way is certainly not necessarily the right way for everybody.
But
so
my opinionation's coming out, isn't it?
But no, that's good. You maverick, you. But yeah, thank you so much for listening or watching to this. Watching this rather. We do hope it's been helpful, or it's just been amusing for you to sit and listen and laugh at us. But if you are enjoying listening and watching or listening to the podcast, sorry, please follow and subscribe. And if you have the time to leave us a quick review, we would really appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, and if you want to visit us on the website or you want to watch us on YouTube, it's weddingmavericks.com, or the YouTube is Wedding Mavericks. And yeah, whether you're enjoying some time with your family this weekend, you're going out having a partying with your mates, or if you're shooting weddings, we hope you have a good one, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye everyone.
Take care. Bye.